Hey, you there! I want to remind everybody that if you end up liking this video, please consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. And right now, YouTube says that over 90% of people that watch my videos aren't subscribed, so it would really help, and with that... Hello everybody, I'm Joel Homie, your guys' host for another great episode of the Joel Homie Show series, Gaming Thursday, where today I'm going to be showing you guys how I used the Nuka-World DLC in Fallout 4 to actually set up street lamps in Sanctuary, which in this playthrough of Fallout 4 is actually my player home. So as you can see behind me, I have a bunch of the Nuka-World DLC sort of street lamps actually running the streets. Now these are just sort of like the bare bones silver ones. Now there are other ones that you actually get that you are allowed to build after you have the Nuka-World DLC installed. Like, there are red ones that have posters on the sides, and there's silver ones that have posters on the sides, and there's even, like, silver ones and red ones that just have the light coming off of one side. But you can see the ones that I actually ended up using actually have the lamps coming off of both sides, and I did actually end up using those to put lights on both sides of the streets, which I think look the best actually running down the streets of Sanctuary. So I'm going to go ahead and actually start running down the building here in just a sec so that I can actually show you guys what I did in detail. As you can see, I'm actually filming this in the nighttime so that you guys can actually see what the lights actually look like. Like you can see here, I'll actually go ahead and point at this so that you can actually see that I am using the ones that have the lights coming off of both sides rather than the ones that only have the light coming off of one side. As with me having it on both sides of the street, I actually think it looks better. So now I'm going to go ahead and navigate my way down through this building. Actually, I guess in this playthrough, I actually just jumped off the building onto a house. And I'm actually going to go ahead and walk over to the main entrance here so that I can actually show you what I did for the main lights upon the entrance. So here we are actually at the main entrance of Sanctuary, which actually, when I turn around here, you can see that I have two of the street lamps set up here. One of them is actually physically wired to a thing, or like a conduit, and then the other one actually doesn't have anything wired up to it because it is sort of like recognizing that there's power nearby. And then here you can actually see my sort of main generator building that runs off and supplies power to my building where I have all of my special stuff like weapons and power armor and stuff like that. And then we have another cable that actually runs over to one set of the two sets of lights upon the sort of main streets of Sanctuary that actually run all the way to the back of Sanctuary, of which I actually don't actually have any street lamps set up yet. So you can see here that upon inspection, you can actually see that I only have one cable running down supplying power to these. As these specific street lamps, you actually can't wire anything to, so what I had to do is actually take conduits and wire them right up next to one set of the street lamps, and then the street lamps on the other side of the street actually detecting that there's power close by, and that is allowing them to pick up power and be able to turn on. Whereas you can see here that when I do have power, I can actually turn them on and off. And what I like about that is that even when they are in service, you can actually sort of make it look as if some of them are actually getting repaired. Whereas if I don't actually have any power supplied, it doesn't matter what I do. As you can see here, they are always turned off if there's no physical conduit going right next to it or a power source. But when I have it on, you can see here that I can actually then turn the street lamps on and off as long as there is power, and the street lamps behind it will still turn on because the conduit is still receiving power. And as I had said earlier, what I do like about this is that you can turn some of the street lamps off and sort of make it seem like one of them is actually getting repaired where the others are still completely functional. And then you can walk back up to it and actually just turn it back on and sort of like it was repaired and serviced and it's now functioning again. And then as you can see here, if I run down the street, you can see that I ran the street lamps almost all the way down this sort of long straight bit of the street. But down here you can actually see that I finished sort of putting street lamps because I haven't built in this section of Sanctuary yet, besides one machine gun turret that is just for defense because enemies can occasionally spawn back here. And until I do build buildings on the sort of old house foundations, I won't be putting any more back there. But you can actually see here that the way that I set up these street lamps, you can actually see that I did end up connecting conduits to them. as I had said. So whenever I want to, I can actually wire them to future street lamps. Like, as you can see here, I'm jumping up and down to demonstrate that you can't actually wire the street lamps themselves to anything, but you can see that when I actually grab a conduit and press space, and since I'm on PC, then I can actually wire the conduits to something, whereas if I were to just point my sort of a center dot sort of a cursor there at the street lamp itself, it won't actually give me the option to actually wire to anything. I'll just keep on jumping up and down, which is why I had to run conduits down one side so that the actual street lamps on the other side of the street would also detect that there is power, and so that all of them will turn on. And I did have to specifically place all of these, otherwise if they were too far apart, it won't actually let me wire the conduits together. So all of these street lamps are roughly the same sort of width apart, and as you could actually see earlier upon the sort of the curve when you actually enter, like you can see I'm sort of looking at it right now, you can actually see that I decided to wire the wires going along the inner sort of corner of the street so that I didn't have as much space to actually go across, whereas if I were to wire the conduits on the other side of the street, I'd actually have to bridge it with sort of like a post conduit, as you can see here, which is actually what I did to utilize the street lamps to actually supply power to my barracks building, rather than what I actually had doing, or what I was doing before I actually had these street lamps, which is actually to just run a simple line of conduits over the top of that yellow house that has the workshop and everything. But now that I actually have the sort of like the street lamps, it actually blends in a lot more, because having wires on the street lamps looks a lot more normal than having a line of wires going just directly across the top of a building. But anyway, with all that being said, I do apologize for the mic quality being a bit different. Unfortunately, my mic did actually break halfway through the original recording for this video, so I'm having to voice over all of this. But anyway, as I said, I hope you guys did enjoy today's video, and at the least, I hope it was a little bit helpful if you do have the Nuka-World DLC. Even if you haven't made any progress, if you have the Nuka-World DLC just installed, you can still access all of these. But with all that being said, if you guys enjoyed today's video,